What's up, guys? Back making another video. It is Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to everybody. My family usually celebrates on the weekend after Thanksgiving, so today's kind of a free day. All the stores are closed. Well, everything's closed in general, but you know, I finally have some free time. This video isn't really scripted. I'm going to try to do this all in one take, so bear with me. It's going to be about not feeling smart. Now, I thought about making a video on just insecurities in general, but I feel like certain insecurities should be dealt with a little differently. But for me, it's always been an insecurity of mine of not feeling smart enough. Now, this all stems from when I was younger, and I'll start with the story and then I'll kind of get into how I dealt with it. But you know, for anybody that ever felt like they weren't smart enough, or if you're going back to school after not being in school for a long time, you know, this video is definitely for you, because this is the boat that I'm in, and I've had this problem slash insecurity of not feeling smart enough for not even school, but just for like jobs or certain, you know, even social situations. And you know, you're not the only one. Like I said, I hope this video reaches out to somebody who has this problem. But I'll just start mine with the story. So my whole insecurity of not feeling smart enough goes way back to 6th grade. Now, before I talk about the school stuff, I just want to, you know, give you the background of the school that I went to was primarily rich kids, and the only reason I went to those schools, and it starts from middle school to high school, so the only reason I even went to those schools was because I lived on the very edge of the neighborhood that just qualified me to go to them. So if you lived in a certain neighborhood, you just automatically went to that school or whatever district that was. And for some reason, I still qualified to go to the nice school, which is good in theory, but socially it killed me. And I'll just start by saying, you know, my first day of 6th grade. Now, 6th grade, middle school is all the elementary schools, well, a few elementary schools coming together, and then you're in a big middle school. So for some reason, to start, the middle school that I went to, like I said, it was mostly rich kids. I felt like I was the poorest one. You know, I came from like the worst neighborhood out of the whole district, essentially. And I went to this school. I didn't know anybody. For some reason, all of my friends went to a different middle school. So I didn't know anybody. I felt like the poor kid. I was overweight. I was awkward. You know, I know everybody's awkward at that age, but I definitely felt like I was the poorest kid in the entire school, and especially as a 6th grader. Didn't have nice clothes. You name it. I was fat, all that stuff. So in 6th grade, you know, it goes by the periods, right? So there's like 0 period, 1st period, yada yada. And the very first start of the day, didn't know anybody. I was sitting in class, and there was this one kid, the nerdy kid actually, smart kid obviously. He was just going around kind of like, you know, asking people random questions, and I didn't know what he was talking about, but eventually he got to me, and he was like, "Hey, do you know how to spell dinosaur?" And I kind of like paused for a second, and then I just tried, and I was like, DINOSOR. And then he kind of looked at me for a while, and then started busting out laughing. And I didn't, like, my heart dropped at that point, and I think I started crying. Like, I actually started crying. Like, this nerdy kid, like, grammar checked me and made a fool out of me, and it was a big scene. And you know, everybody was like, "Why is this fat kid crying?" And I left the room, and that's when everything started, you know. And I've had a series of incidences, not that severe, but all through middle school and high school, I was in situations where I definitely wasn't the smartest kid, you know. And a lot of like the smart kids, you know, like a lot of them were kind of like that, at least the schools that I went to, you know. It was rare when I met a smart kid that was open to everybody, you know. And maybe it's like a developmental thing. Like, maybe when you're that young, you don't really know how to like reach out to people that don't have things in common with you. But I never met like a smart kid, like a really smart kid that was in honors classes that like had their hands out to me, and that was my impression from 6th grade on, and the other thing with me and like the intelligence stuff was I didn't grow up having family or support that pushed education on me. I went through middle school and high school getting just C's and D's, and I didn't have any motivation. Like my parents, my mom graduated high school and that was it. Didn't really care, or at least she never told me that, she wanted anything past that. She just was really into working. That's all she had. My dad didn't graduate high school. In fact, he was a custodian for 15 years and retired. And before that, it was just a series of random jobs here and there. And he wasn't even into trades really. It just random jobs. So with that being said, I didn't have. Oh, and they were divorced too. So that was kind of a factor in playing into me not feeling I could relate to these smart kids, because I didn't have an agenda to like graduate or get into college or to expand my knowledge. It was just like, okay, just go to school, just get it done with. I'd rather just finish school and go home and play Pokemon or like do something else, play N64. That's all I cared about. So I had that factor going on, and ever since the incident I had in 6th grade, like all these insecurities of like getting back into that situation of like being shamed for not being smart, that was always on the back of my mind, like all through middle school and high school. So there are all these factors playing into this insecurity of mine. So with that being said, that's how it all started for me. I'm sure some people that don't feel smart or have the fear of like being intellectually shamed, if you want to call it like that, your problem might stem from something else, but for me it starts there. And I want to aim this video, like I said, I'm going to do this all in one take, but I want to aim this video on how I got over it. So even though this was like a long stemming thing, there were certain things that happened in my life that I really hope I hope this hits home to somebody, because for me, things started to change outside of the education system. Now, I did graduate high school. I barely graduated, to be honest. Like I said, I didn't have any motivation to go to college. Everybody had plans that I didn't know what SATs were. Like that's how unaware my parents were. That's how unaware I was. I didn't know what SATs were. I didn't know what happened after graduating high school. I just thought, oh, yeah, college is there, but I don't know what to do. Like I don't know how to apply. So after high school, I joined into like the workforce, so the real world hit, right? And for me, when I had a job, not in school or anything, when I had like a job, like a part-time job or a full-time job, that's when I realized that I had other good things about me that the smart kids didn't, if that makes sense. And no matter where you come from, what your background is, I guarantee that there's something good about you that a smart kid doesn't have. And I hope this is going to make sense, but if you use that skill that you have, that's not what a nerd has, you can turn that around and apply it towards the same type of situation that nerdy kid does. And this isn't a attack on nerdy kids. Of course, like, there are smart nerds out there that have problems too, but this is aimed towards somebody that feels intellectually insufficient when it comes to being in that same environment, and not feeling intimidated, because they're going to have problems too, and you might be excelling where they're not. So, for example, with me, after high school, like I said, I started working, and then that's when I realized, hey, I'm a good worker, I'm a hard worker, I can commit to a job, I have really good social skills, and then I started realizing that once I took myself out of that situation, that the smart people, being afraid of smart people thing. So I started realizing, hey, there are other good things about me, and eventually, fast forward a few years, fast forward having kids, going through life, all sorts of things, I decided, hey, you know, maybe I should go back to school, or, you know, if I want to have a career in this field, you know, it's going to involve going back to college or whatever. Um, you know, I'm gonna have to just face the music and go back to school, and not be afraid to maybe get bad grades, or, you know, be in a classroom with smart people again. And what helped me, there are a few things. You know, I wrote some things down, but like I said earlier, what helped me is realizing that I had other good things about my personality and my character that smart kids didn't have, and that I could use that to my advantage. So here's another example, right? There was a coworker I had who was really, really good at video games. I mean, he was amazing. He was a little, socially he was weird, you know, which isn't always a bad thing, but it was amazing how good he was at video games. Like, it wasn't shooting games, fighting games, RPG. He was just good at all of them. And then one day we were all sitting on the couch, and me and another buddy were like, dude, like, you're amazing at video games. Like, if you applied that dedication and that drive to a business, you'd be unstoppable. And I genuinely feel that that's true for almost everybody. Like, you know, for, I don't know about women, but like for guys, like a lot of guys play video games, or they're like into cars. Like, most of the people I see, like 100% go into it because they're just into it, you know? And that just proves to you that you have the drive to accomplish something, you know? Like, I know me personally, like there have been things that I've been really into, like hobbies or a topic, you know, a subject, and I've done it before where, like, you know what, like I've spent so much time learning this interest over here. I'm gonna try to just apply it towards this exam or this book or this subject over here that's, you know, education related, and it's actually worked. You know, it's kind of like a little confidence boost you can give yourself, and that has worked for me, believe it or not, you know, in multiple times. You know, I mean, I recently took a pretty big exam that was tough for me. You know, maybe it wasn't tough for like the naturally smart people, but that worked for me. You know, it's going to be different for everybody, but it helped for me to think about a situation in my life, my personal life, that I've accomplished, and I'm like, okay, if I can accomplish that, I can accomplish this exam. Or if I could spend hours beating that level in that game, if you're into video games, I can devote an hour to reading this chapter over here. So it might be hard for some people, but for me that genuinely worked. Another thing too that I think is important to say is, you know, it doesn't get to me as much now, but there will be people in school or in situations where you just realize this person's just naturally smart. And those people used to get to me the most, because not even when I was in high school and junior college and stuff, but you know, there are people out there that barely study and then they just naturally get A's or B's and they don't even try. You know for a fact. You knew they were up all night, and then they roll out of bed and then they just take the test and they just get it, you know. The thing about people like that is, you know, obviously they're naturally smart, you know, like maybe they had more resources than you growing up. Maybe they had parents who just like naturally pushed them on education. Like I said, I didn't come from that. So there are going to be plenty of genetics, you know, there are going to be plenty of reasons why that person is naturally smart. But the advantage that you have not already being a smart person is that you have this much more of a learning curve than they do, you know? Like, they're going to be starting up here, whereas you'll be starting down here, but you have all this room to build character, to build skills, to build, you know, strength, encouragement. You can gain confidence with this. This person starting up here who's the naturally smart person, they might not have the confidence that you're going to be building doing all this. They might not have the charisma that you're going to be building by failing all the time, by reading that page 5 more times than they read it. So all this time is time for you to level up. And once you guys are at the same level, aka once you guys are in the same classroom, you're probably going to be moving at a higher level than they are, because they haven't been putting all that effort into drive into anything, because they've been coasting their whole life on smart mode, you know. And in theory, it sounds good, like easier for them, which maybe it is, but the reality, and I've seen in my life, that having this much room to grow and to build yourself is going to pay off more in the long run, especially when it comes to applying for programs or for, you know, applying for interviews or for jobs. I mean, this isn't a shot at smart people or nerdy people, but a lot of people that don't come from a more privileged family or environment, like a lot of them have a lot of social skills to build, you know, like they had things handed to them, like, you know, maybe they had extra tutoring, but, you know, having to do things twice as hard and being comfortable working hard, I mean, you're going to surpass them all the time, you know. And this is, there might be different situations for some people, but for me, I've seen it plenty of times, you know. And it's a skill worth building, and it's something worth realizing, you know. Like, you're going to be playing the game of life on a hard mode, and they're just going to be either on easy mode or medium mode, maybe because that's what they're comfortable with, but it always pays off being the harder worker, you know. And when it comes to going back to school or, you know, studying for an exam, you're trying to get this career or trying to, you know, land this position, and you need to learn about the company or the policies, you know, that hard work is really going to pay off, and people are going to see that. The important people that matter are going to see that, okay, you know, there's a video I saw on YouTube, actually. I'm not trying not to get too sidetracked, but Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's an astrophysicist, right? He was doing a speech, a graduating class, you know, he's doing this big speech, and he was saying, you know, I can tell a difference between somebody that applies for a job, and I ask them a question, and they either know the answer right away, or they don't know the answer, but they explain how they're going to get there, and they problem solve. And 10 times out of 10, he's going to pick the problem solver versus the person that just automatically knows the answer. It sounds crazy, and I might be butchering what he said, but that one always stuck with me, because I know, because I didn't grow up as a smart person, that I'm going to be working harder. I'm going to have to work harder than the smart person that just has all the answers, quote unquote. So that's a really good skill to have. So if you're not smart like I am, or you're not a naturally smart person, you're going to be forced to work harder, and that's going to be amazing. You know, it's gotten to the point where, you know, I might be one of those smart kids, you know, like, yeah, I didn't grow up having college as a goal or having a degree as a goal, but, you know, I'm there now. Like, I'm becoming the person I was afraid of. In a good way, you know, in a good way. You know, it could be comparable to somebody who was overweight, and now they got to that goal. Now they're at the weight that they want to be at, you know. And it's going to feel weird, you know. It feels weird that I'm going to be sitting next to somebody who grew up in honors classes, AP classes. It feels weird working, literally for me, working next to somebody who's going to be a doctor soon. Like, but you know what? Like, I'm still leveling up. We're talking, we're cool now, you know, like, it's a good thing. In the big picture, it's a good thing, and it just proves that you're conquering that insecurity that you had, you know, that intelligence. Like, you are smart enough, you know. To be honest, I'm not 100% over this feeling inadequate when it comes to, like, my intelligence, but I've been busting my ass my whole life. I had a hard life compared to some, not everybody, but I feel like it's built a lot of character in myself, and that is something that I want other people to realize. Like, if I can do it, I know other people can. I've seen other people do it. Don't let it stop you. You know, you just got to keep working hard and keep climbing that mountain, and eventually you won't even realize it. You'd be like, wow, like, I did it, you know. I'm done with this semester. I finished that book. I passed that exam. So just keep that in mind, and then you just can't give up. You really can't. You know, you have to be comfortable with the failure, because it's going to happen. And ironically, the smart people, a lot of them quit too, you know, but you're not going to quit. You're going to keep going, because you're so familiar with it already that it's just, all right, I'm going to apply again. Okay, I'll take the exam again. And that, at the end of the day, is what's going to make you surpass all the struggles that intellectual struggles. You know, it's that persistence, and I'm sure a lot of people in the medical field are going to tell you that. You know, like the more persistent you are, the more you apply yourself, the more you study. That's all it takes, and that's all I have to say. You know, I hope this hits home with somebody. You're not the only one, and yep, you got it in you.